if I told you that one of Hollywood's most outrageous comedies almost got banned before release? Blazing Saddles, 1974, wasn't just a film, it was a revolution, breaking every rule with fearless humor and wild behind-the-scenes secrets. From Richard Pryor's shocking connection to the movie to the reason why the studio nearly killed the project halfway through production, these facts will leave you speechless. So grab your popcorn because we're about to uncover 20 insane truths about Blazing Saddles that you definitely didn't know. But before we start, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us your favorite comedy of all time. Let's dive in. Fact 1. Richard Pryor was supposed to star. Richard Pryor, one of the boldest comedians of the 1970s, actually co-wrote Blazing Saddles. The studio originally wanted him to play the role of Sheriff Bart. However, due to his controversial reputation and drug use, the executives got nervous and refused to cast him. Instead, the part went to Cleavon Little, who nailed the role with charm and sharp timing. Still, Pryor's edgy humor heavily influenced the script. Many of the movie's most outrageous jokes came straight from his pen. Imagine if Pryor had starred. Blazing Saddles might have been even crazier than it already was. The fact that such a legendary comedian shaped the film, yet never appeared on screen, makes this one of the wildest behind-the-scenes stories in comedy history. Fact 2. The film almost got banned by Warner Brothers. When Brooks first presented the film to Warner Brothers, the studio panicked. The script was filled with taboo-breaking jokes about race, sex, and politics. Executives thought it was too offensive to release and nearly shut it down before cameras rolled. Brooks, however, refused to back down. He argued that comedy should push boundaries and confront uncomfortable truths. To everyone's surprise, once released, audiences loved it. The very humor that the studio feared ended up making the film a box office smash and a cultural milestone. Without Brooks's boldness, Blazing Saddles might never have seen the light of day. It's incredible to think that one of the funniest comedies ever made was just inches away from being silenced. Fact 3. Gene Wilder saved the movie at the last minute. Originally, the role of the Waco Kid wasn't played by Gene Wilder. Another actor, Gig Young, was hired, but during the very first day of shooting, he collapsed on set due to alcohol withdrawal. The production team had no choice but to replace him immediately. That's when Brooks called in Wilder, who had previously worked with him on The Producers. Wilder's dry, witty delivery completely transformed the role, creating one of the most iconic comedy partnerships ever seen on screen. Without him, the chemistry with Cleavon Little might not have worked, and the movie could have flopped. It's almost impossible to imagine Blazing Saddles without Wilder's sarcastic brilliance, but the truth is, he joined the cast at the very last minute. Fact 4. The movie mocked the Western genre like never before. Before Blazing Saddles, Westerns were considered heroic, serious, and deeply traditional. Brooks flipped the entire genre upside down, turning its cliches into comedy gold. From the heroic sheriff to the corrupt politicians and drunken outlaws, nothing was safe. The movie pokes fun at every Hollywood Western trope, often in the most absurd ways possible. For example, when the townspeople build a fake town to trick the villains, it's both ridiculous and genius. What made it even more shocking was that audiences were used to John Wayne-style cowboy movies, and suddenly they were hit with fart jokes, racial humor, and total chaos. By tearing apart the Western formula, Brooks didn't just make people laugh, he changed how audiences looked at the entire genre. Fact 5. The legendary campfire scene made history. One of the most infamous scenes in the film and in comedy history was the campfire fart scene. Before this, Hollywood never showed flatulence on screen in such a bold way, but Brooks wanted to take a natural human experience and turn it into a hilarious and unforgettable gag. The sound effects were deliberately exaggerated, making audiences laugh uncontrollably. Shockingly, some studio executives wanted the scene cut, saying it was too vulgar. But Brooks stood firm, and the scene went on to become one of the movie's most iconic moments. Today, it's hard to imagine comedy films without gross-out humor, but it all started here. This moment proved that Brooks was willing to break every single rule, even the ones nobody thought existed. Fact 6. John Wayne refused to appear. Believe it or not, Brooks actually wanted John Wayne, the king of westerns, to make a cameo in Blazing Saddles. He read the script, laughed, and told Brooks, "It's hilarious, but if I do it, my fans will never forgive me." Instead, he wished the team good luck. Although he turned it down, his blessing meant a lot because Wayne was a Hollywood giant. Ironically, the movie was filled with the kind of humor that directly mocked his classic Western style. Audiences who grew up watching him suddenly saw everything flipped upside down. Even though he never appeared, his shadow was everywhere in the movie. Imagine the impact if he had joined. It could have been one of the biggest shockers in Hollywood history. Fact 7. Madeline Kahn's performance was partly improvised. The unforgettable Madeline Kahn played Lily von Stupp, a hilarious parody of Marlene Dietrich. What many don't know is that Kahn improvised much of her performance, adding wild expressions and subtle comic timing that weren't in the script. Her song, "I'm Tired," became one of the funniest moments in the film, blending sultry humor with ridiculous comedy. Brooks trusted Kahn's instincts so much that he let her play the role with total freedom. The result? A performance that earned her an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress. Not many comedies get recognized by the Oscars, which makes Kahn's achievement even more legendary. Her mix of elegance and silliness elevated the movie, proving that women in comedy could steal the show. Fact 8. Mel Brooks played multiple roles. Not content with just directing, Mel Brooks also appeared in Blazing Saddles as multiple characters. He played Governor William J. Lepetomaine, a ridiculous parody of corrupt politicians, and also voiced the Jewish Indian chief. Brooks loved throwing himself into his movies, often using cameos to exaggerate the humor. His ability to mock authority figures was one of the driving forces behind the film's comedy. By stepping in front of the camera, Brooks made sure his personal comedic style was stamped all over the movie. Fans loved spotting him in different disguises. It's rare for a director to play such outrageous roles in their own film, but Brooks thrived on breaking traditions. His presence made Blazing Saddles even more over the top and unforgettable. Fact 9. The ending was completely unconventional. Unlike most Westerns, Blazing Saddles ends in a way nobody saw coming. The movie literally breaks the fourth wall. Instead of finishing with a standard showdown, the action explodes into the Warner Brothers studio lot, where cowboys suddenly brawl with dancers and actors from other sets. The finale even ends inside a movie theater where the characters watch themselves on screen. This was Brooks's genius way of mocking not only Westerns, but also Hollywood itself. Some critics were confused, but audiences found it brilliant. By smashing through all storytelling rules, Brooks reminded everyone that comedy has no boundaries. The ending shocked people in 1974 and still feels fresh today. It's one of the boldest finales in movie history and pure Brooks chaos. Fact 10. The movie faced censorship battles. The controversial humor in Blazing Saddles didn't just make executives nervous, it also caused fights with censors. Many lines and jokes were considered too risky for 1970s audiences. In fact, Brooks had to argue fiercely to keep certain dialogue in the final cut. Surprisingly, some jokes that were cut back then seem tame by today's standards, while others still shock viewers even now. Brooks explained that the entire point was to use humor to expose racism and prejudice. Instead of hiding the issues, he put them directly on screen in the funniest way possible. While it sparked debates, the risk paid off, turning the movie into a groundbreaking comedy that tackled serious topics while still making audiences laugh out loud. Fact 11. The N-word controversy. One of the boldest choices in Blazing Saddles was its frequent use of the N-word, something unheard of in mainstream 1970s Hollywood. Many studio executives were horrified, insisting audiences would walk out. But Mel Brooks defended it, explaining that racism couldn't be mocked without showing it directly. He wanted the villains to sound as ignorant and ugly as real racists. Interestingly, Richard Pryor, who co-wrote the script, strongly supported its inclusion. Brooks always made sure the joke was never at the expense of Cleavon Little's character, but always at the expense of the racists. While controversial, this daring move made the movie stand out as a comedy that exposed prejudice rather than hiding it. It's shocking even today, but that's what gave the movie its power. Fact 12. Slim Pickens' wild performance. Veteran Western star Slim Pickens played Taggart, one of the villains, and brought genuine cowboy energy to the movie. Unlike some of the other actors, Pickens wasn't used to parodying Westerns. He had lived them. Brooks cast him because he wanted authenticity, and it worked. He delivered over-the-top lines with a completely straight face, which made them even funnier. For example, his scene yelling, "What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?" became iconic. Audiences loved seeing a real cowboy legend make fun of his own genre. Pickens admitted later he didn't understand half the jokes, but that made his performance even better. His seriousness turned absurd lines into pure comedy gold, cementing his place in the film's legend. Fact 13. Harvey Korman stole the show as Hedley Lamarr. Harvey Korman gave one of the funniest villain performances in movie history as the corrupt Attorney General, Hedley Lamarr. His character's name was a running joke, constantly mistaken for actress Hedy Lamarr, which infuriated him on screen. Korman's mix of arrogance, cowardice, and sheer stupidity made the villain unforgettable. Critics praised him for turning what could have been a generic bad guy into a comedic masterpiece. Off-screen, even Hedy Lamarr herself wasn't amused. She threatened to sue the filmmakers for using her name, but Brooks refused to change it, and the joke remained. Today, Hedley Lamarr is considered one of the funniest parodies of a Western villain ever. Korman's sharp timing and ridiculous expressions kept audiences laughing every single time he appeared. Fact 14. The horses were treated like human actors. In a film filled with outrageous humor, even the horses got their moment to shine. Brooks insisted that the horses be treated with as much respect as the actors. In fact, during the infamous fight scene in the fake town, Brooks demanded real stunt choreography for the horses so they wouldn't be harmed. What shocked audiences was when villains actually punched horses on screen, a gag so absurd it made people burst into laughter. Behind the scenes, no animals were harmed, but trainers were constantly on set to make sure the horses were safe. Brooks even joked that the horses were better paid than some of the extras. This unusual level of care made the comedy possible without crossing ethical lines. Fact 15. The script went through 12 drafts. It might feel like Blazing Saddles was pure chaos, but the script actually went through 12 different drafts before filming began. With so many writers, including Richard Pryor, the script was packed with outrageous jokes, and Brooks had to carefully choose what stayed and what got cut. Some drafts were considered too offensive, while others didn't push the comedy far enough. Brooks later said that striking the balance between shocking and hilarious was the hardest part of making the movie. In the end, the constant rewrites created one of the most polished yet outrageous comedies ever filmed. It proves that even a movie that feels wild and improvised is often the result of painstaking work behind the scenes. Fact 16. The film was a box office smash. Despite fears it would flop, Blazing Saddles became one of the highest-grossing films of 1974, earning over $119 million worldwide. At the time, comedies rarely made that much money, but Brooks's outrageous style proved audiences were ready for something different. The mix of slapstick, satire, and taboo-breaking jokes created a cultural phenomenon. People went to see it multiple times, bringing friends just to watch their reactions. Critics were divided. Some called it genius, others said it was offensive trash, but audiences didn't care. They loved it. The success of Blazing Saddles gave Brooks the freedom to make even crazier films like Young Frankenstein and Spaceballs. It's amazing that a movie so risky ended up becoming one of Hollywood's biggest comedy hits of all time. Fact 17. Hedy Lamarr actually sued the film. The running gag of calling villain Hedley Lamarr by the wrong name wasn't just funny on screen, it sparked real legal trouble.
Hedley Lamarr, a glamorous Golden Age actress and real-life inventor, didn't appreciate her name being mocked. She filed a lawsuit against Warner Brothers for defamation and unauthorized use of her name. Although the case was eventually settled out of court, Brooks found it ironic that the joke had turned into reality. The lawsuit only added to the film's legendary reputation. Fans today find it hilarious that a joke inside the movie spilled into the real world. Even though Hedley was angry, the gag became one of the most quoted lines from the film, showing just how deeply the humor connected with audiences. Fact 18. Cleavon Little made history as Sheriff Bart. Casting Cleavon Little as Sheriff Bart was groundbreaking. In 1974, very few Hollywood films featured black actors in leading heroic roles, especially in westerns. Little's charm, quick wit, and clever delivery made Bart one of the most memorable comedy heroes ever. His role wasn't just funny, it was also powerful. By making Bart smarter and braver than everyone else in the film, Brooks flipped the Western genre on its head. Audiences who were used to seeing black characters pushed into the background suddenly saw one leading the story. This wasn't just comedy, it was cultural commentary wrapped in laughter. Little's performance turned Bart into a legendary character, proving that comedy could challenge stereotypes while still entertaining millions.
Fact 19. The movie almost had a sequel. After its massive success, Blazing Saddles nearly got a sequel titled Blazing Saddles Rides Again. Scripts were written, but it never happened. A spin-off called Black Bart was even filmed, but never aired. The magic of the original couldn't be repeated, so it stayed a timeless classic. Fact 20. Preserved in the National Film Registry. In 2006, Blazing Saddles was added to the National Film Registry, honoring it as culturally and historically significant. Despite its wild humor, it became a lasting symbol of fearless filmmaking. The Library of Congress ensured this outrageous comedy will live on forever as a true Hollywood masterpiece.